Test 1 2 1 2 test. Testing.
Testing. 1 2 3. Testing. 1 2 3. You're going to go in the front. I'll be post that back.
So yeah, testing 1 2 testing 1 2 sportscast mic.
I'll be a little bit louder. Yeah, we're just going to use the one.
Test 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Hello 1 2 3. Testing. Hello. Testing. Tell me if it's good. Testing 1 2 3 1 2 3. 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3.
Slow it down, Todd! Keep it there! Christian, short, keep it there. Keep it there in the corner. Get a root on it. Fire, central.
testing, 1, 2.
What if you have to film there? You have to film over there and you move the camera another way? No. No.
Testing.
Right, friend over there. Alright. You need another sound too?
No, I'll do it.
Sorry? I'm analyst, mate. No, you're the commentator.
Well, it's a soggy Friday night at JL Murphy Reserve. It's round 15 in NPL Victoria. And it's two teams that are coming off a win on this Friday night here on NPL Victoria YouTube channel. It's Port Melbourne hosting Avondale. Adam Sarikoglu and Peter Paleologos with us. Peter, there are some very interesting names and no names on the team sheets for these two lineups as they did come through to us. You'll give us all the key news there, Peter. How are you firstly, though?
Very well, good to see you. I don't think we've commentated this year first time, and it's great to be at Port Melbourne. We're seeing Port Melbourne who are coming up the ladder a little bit. They're in 12th. Last time I saw them, they were right at the bottom, and we've got Avondale, one of the powerhouse clubs, who are really in some good form, and they're all about depth. They've got depth on the bench, and they've got depth on the pitch. But it's Port Melbourne that's quite interesting. They're missing two key players, one from the starting lineup, and one may not even be on the list. Adem. It's very interesting. I'll let you go through the team, but yeah, it's very Liston Diaz.
No Liston Diaz tonight for Port Melbourne, and for Avondale, Stefan Valentini is out as well. We know we have two sides out here that are featuring a lot of players playing against their former club here this evening, Peter. As we get set to go, Manny Agawek is going to kick things off for Avondale. But the changes from last week, it's the one change, Daniel Serra has come in for Liston Diaz for Port Melbourne, and for Avondale, Kirk He's into the lineup alongside Joe Katabian and Sian Cuba. Stefan Valentini off the team sheets completely this evening. Luca Tavia is on the bench. And Yute Towns as well, starting on the bench for Zoran Markovsky this evening. An early whistle here. Momcilo Vasilinov in charge of proceedings this evening here at JL Murphy Reserve. First home fixture for the new coach, Maxim Gadovsky, after getting the win at South Melbourne in the local derby last week, Peter.
That was an amazing result, and we talked about South Melbourne. They're involved in a huge game with Melbourne Knights. Who would have thought 13th and 14th Port a few weeks ago were right behind them, as was Altona Gate, or Altona Magic, I should say. Both those teams, Port and Altona Magic, are surging a little bit more up the ladder in a bit of form. But we've got Melbourne Knights and South Melbourne, which I assume a lot of viewers are looking at. So it's going to be a very interesting night.
This is Kirk. 4 goals this year for Avondale. Playing back to Kalalu Kamara. And Daniel Edwards playing on quickly. So there is a lot of former Port Melbourne players in this Avondale lineup, and a sprinkling of ex-Avondale that Port have been running with this year as well. Chief among them, Liston Diaz, but not out here tonight. That is a key exclusion from the Sharks lineup. Edwards with the through ball here. It's Daniel Serra in goal tonight for the Sharks. Here's Katabian. Tom Manos in goal tonight for Avondale. Courtney Perkins. Very direct ball for Sian Cuba, who was looking like he was going to go down. The goal goes in anyway. Manu Agawek, he scored early. That was all very awkward indeed at the back for Port Melbourne. Agawek puts it away. Early goal, Avondale.
Unbelievable, very early goal. And that was, in a sense, a different philosophy here, I would say, by Avondale. They're normally one of the few teams that go so direct, and this time, maybe it's the wet weather. We've had a lot of rain in Melbourne, and the pitch is quite wet, but to go direct and really get behind, it was just a bit too easy. And I think the goalkeeper, but also the defence, will be very disappointed. You mentioned Liston Diaz. He was in Team of the Week and top scorer for Port Melbourne. He's not playing today. Also, Yide Towns. He's not in the starting lineup. He was also in Team of the Week. So, yeah, some interesting developments early on, but very quick. Avondale, surprising.
11 goals for the year now for Manny Agawek. Scored the last of the 4 goals in the 4-1 win Avondale took over Port Melbourne way back in the middle of February at Avenger Park. He's been scoring for fun this year, Manny Agawek. He's done it again. Jan Kulowski regaining for Port Melbourne. Mouillet now going in the direction of Sarah. I misspoke before. It's Luka Romic in goal this evening for Port Melbourne. Maker. Going wide in the direction of McCloskey. Igawek tried to thread one through for Kirkert. It's in all honesty, Peter, a bit of a bizarre atmosphere here already at JL Murphy Reserve as Port Melbourne just look to try to establish any sort of momentum at all. Get some sustained possession on the ball. Dib will go wide. That very early goal already just sucking some life out of the joint here on what is a soggy evening. Not overly cold though. Stop starts that have rained with Hattie Melbourne today. Laban. Played up by Wellsmore. It's Mouillet looking to work here. Farrow not far away either.
Yeah, you mentioned Mouillet there. He was also in Team of the Week, and he's also one of the interesting players who's really growing week in, week out for Port Melbourne, especially. They've had a lot of defensive frailties. If you look at expected goals that they may cop, as you say, they're probably high, whereas we mentioned Agwek, that's his 12th goal. He's also got 1 assist. Very, very powerful forward and really just finishes things off. And the expected goals for Avondale are quite high, the highest in the competition, over 31. So, yeah, that in terms of a ratio. So, Avondale, an early goal makes it quite hard for Port Melbourne, I would say.
Courtney Perkins. Switched over to Yusuf Ahmed. Tracheski. Courtney Perkins. A homecoming of sorts for him tonight. Kirkert. Port Melbourne holding their lines here. Well controlled by Mouillet. Delano Farrow goes down for Port Melbourne. Both teams getting a bounce back win in round 14. It was a 2-1 loss at Heidelberg for Port Melbourne a couple of weeks ago. And that shocking 5-2 win for Green Gully over Avondale a fortnight ago as well. Avondale responding beautifully with a 3-0 win against the champs at Avenger Park last week. A game that included an own goal, as did the previous fixture between these two as well back in February. It was Jonathan Verkurtzis who turned it in for an own goal. And he's on the Port Melbourne bench this evening. Ball's up for grabs here. Good first touch with the man on by Dib. Ball won't reach Brown.
Yeah, with Port Melbourne, they're missing their 2 X-Factor players. We mentioned Liston Diaz. Alyssa Andrados has been really a revelation this year. He's on the bench, but he hasn't started either. They're the 2 players that really give Port Melbourne that attacking edge, and they're missing both tonight. With Avondale, they've got a big selection of players. I mean, we know about their depth, and today it's Katebi in the midfield with Chan Kuba, who also alternates. Trachevsky, who is basically really one of the best assist players and passing players. So they've got much more depth and able to mix things up. Port Melbourne missing 2 key players, going to make it quite tough.
Romich gets there. Just as Courtney Perkins was closing in. Laban. A boot on the way through there from Kirkert. Manos will play toward Edwards. Kirkert a little slow to get up in the foreground. Looking a little proppy. We'll have to make a run shortly, but Kuba just breezes past him. Kirker not 100% right now. Avondale will make the run down the left side. Looking to double the early lead here. In it comes. And it gets away from Sian Cuba. Avondale asking for a corner.
Sian Cuba there running a lot of ground there. He actually, Courtney Perkins was stuck up front. Sian Cuba worked back in that transition that Port Melbourne were trying to get through. And then all of a sudden, he pops up on the other end. A lot of work right there early on and showing his intention. He hasn't had that much game time, so really trying to stamp his authority on this game.
Farrow toward the touchline. Now Dibb. He released out wide, goes in again. Foul for Avondale.
Most of our viewers probably don't know. This is an interesting difference in philosophy here. We've got Avondale, an early goal, but pretty much a direct goal, which is not really their style. They play very much a possession game, while Port Melbourne, although they've conceded a lot of goals this year, they're actually one of the teams that plays a lot of progressive passing, trying to push the ball forward. Not too many long balls, and I think we'll see a little bit more of that today, but they really, with missing Diaz, Alessandrados, probably don't have the edge up front, so really Farrow needs to step up as well. But yeah, interesting philosophies between the two, and I think the game will is obviously Avondale on top with their passing game, but I could see, Port Melbourne are a threat.
It gets away from Jackson Courtney Perkins. The magic spray came out for Kirker. He's okay. Daniel Serra. It's Luka Romic in goal for Port Melbourne tonight. Alex Condoli in the backup keeper. Edwards had to work hard. Farrow bearing down. So Maxim Gajdowski gets the win first up. It's a local derby when South and Port meet. South got the win to start the season, in the season opener here at JL Murphy, in the best of revenge that Port could have gotten, given that both those clubs find themselves in a relegation battle right now.
Yes, and we'll be updating you on what the score is on that other game, Melbourne Knights and Port Melbourne.
Chance here for Port. The header off target. I think it was Aidan Brown in the end that missed that shot.
Got to do a little bit better there, Aidan Brown, right towards the 6-yard box. Got to be able to get that on target. I don't know if you know this, Adam, that I did some research on Y-Scout, which is one of the platforms for our viewers in terms of scouting and searching player stats. And I have to say, I didn't know this, that Port Melbourne were the youngest team in the NPL.
Kirker, as Avondale look to extend this early lead they have. It's still Kirker. Cuba was out of position in the end. Half-time at Tomset Stadium. Melbourne Knights 0, South Melbourne 2. The half-time score in the original derby. That is so much more that particular fixture. Port Melbourne certainly made things a lot harder for South last weekend. And Avondale's just been making life hard for everyone. This has been their MO for quite a while now in NPL Victoria. Second on the table currently. They get the turnover through midfield. Krajewski doesn't reach Kirker. Regained by Muyet. Farrow was on the back foot there. Katabian in the better position to go after that contested ball. Wellsmore has to retreat back to Edwards. Kamara. Courtney Perkins going first time. Gets it back from Katabian. Manny Agawek gets a touch after scoring his 11th league goal of the season. A relatively simple finish for him. Kamara's ball just a little bit too much on it for Kerr.
Just looking at the formations, Adam, and 4-1-4-1, I would say, the way that Avondale have been set up today. Port Melbourne a little bit harder, they're a bit more, obviously Brown's leading the line and Ferro's more of a 4-4-2, but yeah, it's pretty much Avondale's with their 4-1-4-1 worked so well for them this year in terms of their formation. Port Melbourne are doing a bit of a midfield press as well, I noticed, with two lines and trying to get that ball in order to set up a transition, a turnover. So they're really trying to keep it very a midfield block.
So Cuba thought that he had an opening there for a moment. It's cleared away. Wellsmore gets a touch in front of Delano Ferro. Scored twice for Port Melbourne in this NPL Victoria season, Delano Ferro. And there could be many reasons why Avondale have made quite a few changes and excluded some players from their squad tonight. One of those being, Peter, they've got a cup game coming up on Tuesday. It'll be a home fixture. They played at BT Connor against Manningham United. So a short break for Avondale. Out of reach of McCloskey. There's a lot of cup action coming up on Tuesday this week. Port Melbourne no longer in the cup. They've not had a great record of late against Avondale either, Port Melbourne. Their last win against this opposition was nearly 3 years ago now, July 2022. Port Melbourne's last win against Avondale. Cuba. Edwards. Kamara. Gets it back from Courtney Perkins. Edwards, the long ranger, will only pick out Romic in goal.
Romic, who was in Team of the Week last week, a fantastic performance, one of his better for the year. But you mentioned the Australia Cup, very important for a lot of players because that's the showcase for a lot of the NPL players, especially Victoria has done very well over the last few years to showcase. And now with the A-League going with younger players, more local players, a lot of these players can also shine. The other thing about Avondale is they're obviously part of the second division. We know it's a conference type league or a group league, and they have to have a very strong squad. In fact, talking to a few people around, not just in Victoria but New South Wales, they're considered one of the favourites for that competition. Probably with also Marconi that is looking at two stronger teams.
Avondale just looking to press in these last couple of minutes. They've upped the tempo. And that's a good ball by Kerr. Can Agawek find the opening? He can. It does draw the save from Romic. Some vintage stuff there from Avondale. And Kerr nearly won it back. It stays with Port Melbourne though. Dibb will take it away. Jankolovsky. Back with Dibb. Maker. They knock it around at the back here, Port Melbourne. They've had some good wins here this year, Peter. Knocked off the Preston Lions. And that was a real shock win in front of a good crowd here as well that particular night. They'll be looking to take down one of the big dogs again here this evening, but they're on the back foot Manny Agawek in the 3rd minute. The one and only goal in this game so far. Courtney Perkins. Sian Cuba. Not sure how that ball got through to him. Lovely challenge by Muyet. Sarah. Courtney Perkins looking to keep it alive. He does. And finds a teammate. Farrow was working incredibly hard there to dispossess Kerr. So it'll be taken by Sarah. Intended for Aiden Brown. Edwards. Tracheski. Yusuf Ahmed was tightly marked. Some patience from Wellsmore. Some patience all around from Zora Markovsky's men. That'll be taken by Courtney Perkins.
And Muyet really getting in there. The thing about Muyet is he's one of the top interceptors in the NPL. 7.31 interceptions this year so far. Very capable player and very vital. Saw that against Kerr. But Laban is a very interesting player that came across from North Geelong. He's one of the best progressive passers in the NPL. We haven't seen much of that today, and maybe because he doesn't have the outlet. He's missing Liston Diaz. He's missing Alessandrados, who's on the bench, I believe. So he's missing those couple of really attacking players. But he's the one that can really get through the channels and create something for Port Melbourne. Maybe it's a bit need a bit more options up front.
They're threatening to score the second one here, Avondale. Manny Agawek, who scored the first one. No way through. Jankolovsky went himself, got held up at the halfway line. Tracheski out wide. Kerr. Muyat will take it away. He's been good so far for Port Melbourne, holding his own defensively. Played up in the air by Brown. It was kept in by Sarah. Was Muyet manhandled there? No, the foul's going to go Avondale's way.
Yeah, it's a bit unclear there why that's the case. I'm looking at Katebi and Joey Katebi, and he was a striker. I remember him from the National Youth League. Now he's become a really crucial six, and it just shows how players can transition into different positions. So vital now for Avondale in terms of their NPL campaign, but also, as I mentioned, the second division. And it's good to see him dictating those terms just in front of the front four.
This is one NPL Victoria venue where the cars really get packed in like sardines, and a stray ball can do some damage. That one ricocheted into the car park. One of the marshals comes to retrieve it. It is a heavy deck here tonight. Rain holding off though. That's the good news. Dib. Maker gets it back to Dib. Sarah will work it through the triangle. Maker gets away into space, and Sarah was available on the left. No way past Courtney Perkins, so we went back to Maker. Dib then sends it wide. It's coming, but it's going over the head of Farrow. Brown tried to attempt to at least put Tom Manos off his line. It's still Port Melbourne 0, Avondale 1.
With Port Melbourne, I mean, they've had the lowest number of crosses again this year in terms of crossing into the box. So really, that's not really their game plan. They're more of a passing team or through the channels. But it's Avondale have got the firepower. That's the thing. I mean, you mentioned Manny Agwek, came back from Malta, more polished striker, already 11, 12 goals this season, plus an assist, looking dangerous. I'm wondering whether some A-League clubs are looking at him. Then you've got players like Ahmed, Kerr, Otts, Tevere, Trachevsky, Zinni, Valentini's not playing that, all with 3 goals. So with 40 goals plus this year, I mean, Avondale's got just firepower across the ground, and it's going to be very hard for Port Melbourne to really be able to stop that tonight. But the conditions may be in Port Melbourne's favour, slowing down that game that Avondale offer.
Played back by Agawet. It was easily cleared out in the end for Port Melbourne by Dip. The Wolves were closing in on Avondale with that possession. So it's been 1-0 since the 3rd minute here. Delano Farrow. Dib. Jankolevsky. Avondale get it back here. Yusuf Ahmed. Wellsmore back to Edwards. Manos. Just looking a little more stagnant right now, Avondale. Bit of a tightening up defensively from Maxim Gajdovsky's men. Anglewek for Ahmed. Wellsmore. Edwards. Courtney Perkins. Katabian. Kerr. Joey Katabian. Edwards. The patience really pleasing Zoran Markovsky. While Avondale have got possession, one of their players had gone down in the background. Will stay with Manny Agawek here. Flag eventually going up. But Avondale player that was down. It was Yusuf Ahmed. He's okay now. Didn't see what happened. They looked away at the exact wrong moment there, Peter.
Yeah, it was a late clip there. Just got him right at the end as the ball moved. I'm just looking at Trachevsky. He's actually playing a little bit as a false 9, and then he's alternating with Cuba a little bit, their positions. So quite interesting, the agility, if I can call it that, of Avondale players moving across, not always in their position, but able to support each other, and that's part of the Avondale philosophy with so many talented players. You mentioned Wellsmore quite a bit, and he's been a big signing from Oakley. It's good to see that he's starting to really progress with this Avondale team.
Trachevsky still working here. Brown was positioned well. Sarah, Dib, Moyet. Trachevsky. Dankolovsky going down the line. Farrow. Denied the McCloskey run. A little frustrated was Al McCloskey. The challenge on Wellsmore sees him go down. No bookings yet from on Chelo Vaselinov.
Yeah, it's. I'm looking at Maker as well. I haven't seen him much involved in the game. He's been quite impressive. I think that result, Port Altona, when they were bottom of the ladder, the 3-all, a massive comeback, really ignited Port, and that's why they've had some good results. And also Altona. Altona's had a lot of momentum. Altona Magic recently too. So I was expecting a little bit more from Port tonight, but it's been a slow start for them. Maybe it is because they're missing two of their X-Factor players on the pitch tonight, but in Liston Diaz and Alessandrados, but their forward potency is not there. Ferrer's actually been drawing back. Also noticed they're playing a mix of zonal, but also man marking within the midfield and the defence, and that doesn't always help you transition, quick transitions to support the forwards, and that's where a little bit Port are behind, but we may see some changes later down the track.
Port Melbourne have had one of each in their last 3, 4 points taken away from their last 3 fixtures. In fact, last week's win, what that did for the first time this year, it saw Port Melbourne not get consecutive losses. There have been 3 different runs of 3 consecutive losses for Port. Going all the way back to round 1. And the loss before last week's win against South Melbourne, the first isolated loss of the season for the Sharks. 2 of Avondale's 3 losses have come in the last month. They yet to have a draw this year in NPL Victoria Avondale. The Sharks have had a couple looks at corners. Owen McCloskey makes his way over. They've been a little threatening in the air. So Aidan Brown's the one to watch here for Port Melbourne. Anthony Laban has snuck in as well. Opting for the short option. And I am not sure about that, Peter, because the one thing that seems to have at least given a minor headache to Tom Manos so far has been the aerial stuff from Port Melbourne. They didn't even send it in. A long way out of the area right now is Romich, but it'll be okay for Port Melbourne.
Got away with that, Romich. You're right. Getting that set piece in gives a chance for Brown, who's quite dangerous, Laban, to cause pressure on Avondale, and also waiting for the second ball, having the players around the box, waiting for the second ball, maybe another snapshot and putting pressure on Manos. But they seem to be mucking around a little bit with that set piece, and they're not going to get that many opportunities tonight. Avondale are very good at possession, and when you do, especially with the set piece, that's where you can show some danger. And I noticed Maker starting to get more involved. Those tackles in the middle, very important for them to be able to stop Avondale's flow. But really, Port Melbourne really not going to get many chances. Set pieces, maybe one avenue for them tonight.
Laban just blazing away. But Tom Manos isn't happy. We don't seem to have any spare balls available this evening. One of the marshals has gone to fetch that ball. Plenty of practice pitches around this facility. Finally, a new ball comes out. Not long before the old one was going to come back into play anyway.
I noticed we had the same issue with the balls. Wasn't enough balls in the under-23 game. One good thing about this ground, which I really like, is the scoreboard. Really nice and sharp, and you can see. But yeah, there's not many balls circulating. Maybe the not saying there's a shortage, but yeah, we need to circulate those balls quicker. But in order to keep this game moving. But Muget's impressed me. He's become one of the, I suppose, surprising players in the NPL, and a really good find for Port Melbourne. It's good to see these type of players coming from different countries or coming from the smaller leagues and really impressing here.
It's been a good couple of minutes for Port Melbourne. Farrow. Sarah's ball. There is no one anywhere near it, though. As it scurries away from the back post. You would give the last 5 minutes to Port Melbourne, I think, Peter, right now. Four minutes past the half-hour mark. Avondale leading thanks to Manny Agawek in the third minute. There's a stagnant start for Port Melbourne. Avondale have shown their usual flashes. A couple of moments aerially for Port Melbourne that have given Tom Manos a headache or two, but for the most part, Avondale looking to keep their control over this game. Are they about to settle back in and show who's boss here? Yusuf Ahmed with a nice move. His ball in the first time didn't work. The second time around, Chachevsky's trying to make something happen. Now Agawek's on it. Dib got in his way. Maker. And Agawek made him earn it. Delano Farrow. Look at the speed of Delano here. Wellsmore. That was class.
Very classy from Wellsmore, and that's why they brought him over from Oakley. Very important player and piece of the puzzle for this year. But I will say something, Maker got away with that. He really tried to dribble out of defence. Linney lost the ball, but then he made up for it. Oh, that was a close one there, but a yellow card there. Strachevsky, I believe, he's got the yellow card from behind, but I think it's also the weather, the way he drove in. Maybe a fair decision, but going back to Maker, he made up for that mistake and really tried to push the ball forward. And this is now another set piece, Adem, where Port Melbourne really is, as you mentioned, a bit threatening on this, but they've got to deliver it right into the box. At least give us a second ball opportunity or a set piece header opportunity.
The protest from the Avondale bench that he got the ball. Nick Dibb. This is where Port Melbourne can really threat and go for that equaliser. Well handled in the end by Avondale. The first touch from Cuba allowed enough time for Nick Dibb to close in. It's a busy night in NPL Victoria. 4 fixtures all live at the moment. South Melbourne, who might be down to 10 men, but a 2-0 lead at Melbourne Knights. Oakley has a 1-0 lead over Green Gully. What a fixture that is as well. 0-0 between Preston and Dandenong City. Dandenong Thunder hosting Hume City tomorrow. St Albans and Altona. Melbourne Victory will play Heidelberg on Monday. Strachevsky, who took that yellow card, goes directly into Romich. Peter, NPL Victoria fixturing, it's been a fascinating beast this year, and it's been the common theme, the way this particular round's been set up, with the majority of the games for the rounds on the Friday night, and then one each on the Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. It's a fascinating beast, this fixture, isn't it?
It is, and look, we're actually in the second part of the season, believe it or not, and we don't even have the transfer window, which I know that Melbourne Knights and South Melbourne, really need to beef up. But yes, it is very fascinating, and look, it gives also people, a lot of people do want to come out on Friday night or watch on Friday night, and we know we've got the A-League tomorrow, I believe, so you really got to space it up. But the good thing about NPL Victoria, we've had you mentioned Green Gully, Adem. They took out Avondale 5-2 with a big win there, and they're showing a little bit of form. Port Melbourne came out of a slump. Altona came out of a slump. There's a lot of narratives and stories around.
Dib couldn't get it through to McCloskey. Katabian got dispossessed. They've had a lot of energy, Port Melbourne. It took them a while to really get into this game and match the tempo of Avondale. They've been able to do that now. They're closing out this first half nicely. Courtney Perkins here. Misfired. Well, yeah, dispossessed by Cuba. Maker. Jankolovsky here. Well, yeah. Took a little bit of pressure from Yusuf Ahmed. Laban wanted to release quickly. Combining with Sarah here. Mouillet. Maker has some space here. Look at this. Booted it straight into Trajewski. Now it's Dib. Oh, that wasn't far away. Manos wasn't even interested.
Fantastic effort there by Deb. Really looked dangerous. And Port Melbourne need more of a high press to push Avondale back, and they're starting to show that. But also those last few minutes really showing that they can control possession, try to get through the channels. And Deb maybe a little bit disappointed with the way he just maybe could have got a bit closer. But yeah, Port Melbourne back in this, and they're showing obviously a higher press will put Avondale under pressure, and I can see that actually pushing. As you can see, 4 attackers keeping close to Avondale in order for Avondale not to be able to come out from the box.
And yet again, Farrow can utilise the speed. Dib gets away from Farrow. Well done by Kalalu Kamara. Chance now for Yusuf Ahmed. Looking to cut inside. Hargowek just got tripped up on the ball. Kerr's moved over to the left side for Avondale. So he has swapped sides with Yusuf Ahmed. First time ball from Laban. Out in the direction of Brown. Manos. Kalalu Kamara. Trajewski. Still Christian Trajewski. Took on 2 of them in the end. A lot of support coming from the sidelines. Liston Diaz right in front of us. Peter tonight is Liston Diaz. Scored from the spot against Avondale in his return fixture to Avenger Park. Not out here tonight. But making his voice known, that's for sure. Farrow. Just keeping it in. Katabian. Didn't clear it too far. Maker. Getting close to the end of the 45 here. There's a 1 currently on the 4th official's board. Mouillet. Shallow ball. Easily dealt with by Katabian. Had time to release Kerr. Over on the left side now, Kerr. Where's Agawek lurking? He decides just to play back instead for Cuba. It's a goal kick.
Yeah, you mentioned that Ahmed's come onto the right side, Kerr onto the left side. That's in order to alternate. But I've been looking at Courtney Perkins and Trajewski in terms of Avondale. They work really well together. I can see they've got a bit of an understanding. But Port, Ferreira's really doing well. He's had 2 assists and 2 goals this year, but really starting to show his pace and getting into the game. I think they need more support up front, but he's really showing what he can do.
Minute and a half left in regulation here. Expecting only 1 minute to be added on. Daniel Edwards. Courtney Perkins. Gets it back from Yusuf Ahmed. This is Kamara. Anglewek pushed off it. Farrow. Brown. Only 1 man ahead right now. Farrow made the second, but Sarah was the one advancing. Turns it over to Cuba. Courtney Perkins, Katabian. Kamara for Edwards. Wellsmore. Placed it nicely enough for Agawek. Just a little boot in from Dib to kill it off. That wasn't Dib, that was in fact Trajchevsky.
Yeah, Jankolovsky and Trajchevsky, very decent at the back there. But with Port Melbourne, I think they'll be happy because Avondale scored early and that could have opened the floodgates. They're more compact, they're more balanced at the moment in this latter part of the second half and trying to stay into this match. I'll probably be happy only if they're going to go down 1-0.
1 more minute here. Avondale can score from anywhere in any situation. Yusuf Ahmed's ball was blocked though. Maker. Another run here from Delano Ferro. Looking to get away from Yusuf Ahmed. Holds up, does Ferro. Maker had a man on. Goes again, Maker. Jankolovsky. McCloskey playing back. Jankolovsky again. McCloskey, the outlet on the right side here for Port Melbourne. It's all McCloskey. For Nick Dibb. Sarah, this might well be the last passage of the first half. That's confirmed by Momchilo Vasilenov, and that is us done for the first half here at JL Murphy Reserve. And it was Manny Agawek, Peter, who got it done in the 3rd minute. And to be honest, it took a while for the game to get going, but finally Port Melbourne just found their momentum and energy and started to create a couple of chances of their own and really did hold their own for the majority of that first half once they were finally able to get going and match the intensity that Avondale was bringing to the table.
Yeah, I think they had a combination of hybrid defending, man marking and zonal. That match, and we'll have a report on that very soon. But yeah, Port Melbourne in this, and let's see if they they're getting a more attacking frame of mind in the second half.
Half-time here at JL Murphy Reserve. Port Melbourne 0, Avondale 1. We're back live at JL Murphy Reserve. Adam Sarikoglu and Peter Paleologos here. And Peter, we have had a halftime substitution from Maxim Gajdowski, and Daniel Serra has made way for Tom Alessandratos.
Yeah, it's Tom Alessandratos, one of the form players in the NPL. Good to see him on the pitch. Probably one of the, besides Liston Diaz, the most attacking player for, I would say, creative attacking player for Port Melbourne. But good to see him on the pitch, and someone who can really do some damage, hopefully for Port Melbourne today, they'll be hoping. But yes, no changes with Avondale, and yeah, it should be a very interesting second half, I think. Port Melbourne finished strongly, and I'm just looking at some of the halftime stats. They haven't had a shot on target, although they've had several corners, so they really need to maybe, test out a little bit, Manos a little bit more, whereas Avondale had quite a few shots on target, but today they haven't been as efficient. Ardem?
Delano Farrow, Alessandratos looking to have instant impact here, but Wellsmore gets it in front of him. Had some help through Edwards. Yusuf Ahmed handled the ball there. Whistle to the mouth, and eventually that whistle is blown. It was an accidental handball. Ball popped up directly into the hands of Yusuf Ahmed. Nick Dibb to take this dead ball here for Port Melbourne. Not a high crossing team, Peter, as you and I discussed at half-time. So they're not providing too many opportunities into the box, but this being a dead ball situation. Dibb's ball carried a fair way. Played up by Mouillet. Goal kick. So when they do get the chance to cross one in, even from the set-piece situation, they're not really making much of their opportunities so far, Port Melbourne.
Yeah, there's no end product at the moment. They're getting in the positions, they're getting into set pieces, but unfortunately there's no end product. But we were talking at halftime about we're not having the Optus stats this season, or I think it was last as well, but I was just showing you some Y-Scout stats that I found. And Y-Scout's a platform, as I mentioned before, for players, coaches and agents.
Just hold the thought, Peter. Because Maker has it in the front third, goes wide for Delano Farrow. Works into the area. Farrow playing back for Yankolovsky. Trajevski. Mouillet. Maker. Manny Agawek goes down here, and Monchilo Vaselinov has blown the whistle for Manny Agawek here. Now, in a similar part of the pitch late in the first half, I think those two came together in another little moment, and was that a little touch of revenge perhaps? I'm not quite sure, but Maker's been involved in a couple of physical encounters throughout the evening, Peter. Sorry to cut you off before, by the way.
No, talking about Maker, he's a bit of a spoiler, I would say, like a six who tries to pretty much stop Avondale's attacking through the channel especially, and yes, you're right, he's caught Agawak and a few other players during this match, but that's probably his role. His role is to put pressure, to break up play and make sure that Avondale don't have that rhythm that we're used to, that possession passing that they're really good at and probably lead the NPL in. So Maker a very important role, but is committing some fouls. We're just talking about a little briefly about Y-Scout, and I think I showed you some stats which very interesting that I didn't know that they existed on there. And yes, we're getting a lot of stats on players, etc. Not here to overuse those stats.
Sorry, Peter, have done it again here because there's a key chance here. Trajevski can't get the shot away. Desperate defending Yusuf Ahmed. He's blocked the first time. Port Melbourne get away with it. And they want to counter quickly here. McCloskey ultimately outnumbered. Trajevski takes it away for Avondale. Kerr just slowing the tempo down here for a moment.
We're coming out! We're coming to see! Fuck behind Dory! We're Dory!
Trajevski had it for a while. Katabian. Trojewski. Wellsmore. Agawek dispossessed. Had it stolen away from him by Jankolovski, who plays back to Romic. Go again, Peter.
No, I'll just finish on that point. You mentioned Trojewski. We actually just looked at a stat for Trojewski's probably the most efficient partner in the pass, I should say, in the NPL. And I think you were intrigued by that, Adam, seeing those stats. But focusing back on the game, Jankolovski, I think, has had a very good game, very steady at the back. Yes, it started very tough for Port Melbourne, but there you can see there he's really... he has committed a foul, but very steady player there for Port Melbourne, really keeping their defence on. And Avondale, I think they sense that they've got to ramp things up, and this is an opportunity. We haven't seen many set pieces with Avondale, so this is one for them.
Momchilo Vassilinov has blown the whistle again here as Wellsmore goes down. No booking, only one booking for the game. Christian Trojewski, the only yellow card shown in this game. At least that I've noticed. Peter, I haven't noticed any others. Cuba. Wellsmore. Well, that was just looking like it could have tracked inward for a moment. It faded. Saw Port Melbourne take a similar shot, didn't we, in the first half that wasn't far away from that top right corner?
No, and these are the conditions where you want to try these things. It's a little bit wet. You can slip through. There's a lot of players in front of the goalkeeper and it could edge up. But it's also been a big week in football. I don't want to digress, but we know that Postecoglou, Spurs, big week in Australian football, and James Johnson moving on into Canada, Adem.
Yep, it's a big time of year for Australian football for many reasons, both domestically and with what Ange has been able to do with Tottenham Hotspur. That narrative is much what he hasn't been able to do with Tottenham Hotspur with their league form this year. Certainly one of those narratives, Peter, from not just from a footballing perspective, just from an Australian sporting perspective, as to whether or not Ange Postecoglou's win in that final against Manchester United, is it the single greatest Aussie coaching sporting achievement in Australian sporting history? And let's just ponder that for a moment. Agawek couldn't get power on the shot.
Yeah, the Kerr-Agawek combination, always dangerous. Agawek would be disappointed there. He's one of the top obviously the top finisher in the NPL. Got to get more power on that. Got to get more sting, if I can call it that, and really would be disappointed with that outcome. But you're right, is it? I'm not here to speculate. Everyone's got their opinion, but it is a seminal event. And I think I mentioned also James Johnson, the CEO of Football Australia, who's moving on and going to Canadian football in their business, I would say, their business partnership in terms of the Canadian Association there. So that's a very interesting move. But going back to Ange, seminal moment in Australian football. And now Port Melbourne get an opportunity and be very... another set piece. This is where I think Alessandrados can show something. He's been very impressive with his set pieces in previous games.
We'll stay with this free kick here for Thomas Alessandrados. Half-time substitute for Daniel Serra. Fumbled initially there by Tom Manos, if you want to call that a fumble. Maybe it was a controlled little tap. Gets it out in the direction of Kerr. So again, Port Melbourne holding their own here against Avondale after a slow start, conceding in the 3rd minute. McCloskey didn't go far, ricocheted the other way. Cuba's going to chase it down for Avondale. Sian Cuba. Took a little touch on the way through. Eventually taken by Romic. Farrow. Full of speed. Delano Farrow. Denied by Edwards. Comes back to Maker. McCloskey. Laban. Oh, McCloskey here. Jankelevsky. Farrow, can he get the shot away? Just played in instead. Brown. Manos again. Being called upon a fair bit more often than Luka Romic at the moment.
That was one of their first shots on target, actually, but Brown got to do better than that. A little bit more power. But we've seen the change here. We see the change here with Farrow going to more of a wing back. Got McCluskey on the other side, 3 in the back for Port Melbourne, and really showing a little bit more attacking prowess.
Kerr. No power on the shot. Yusuf Ahmed tries. Maker gets it away from him. It's Maker. The moves from Muyet. McCloskey goes in. It will be a corner for Port Melbourne. And I'll be honest, Peter, no short stuff yet. Whip it in.
And look, with Alison Drados, and I've got to correct myself, it was actually Nicholas Stibb who took that free kick earlier. It looked alike a little bit with Alison Drados. He's added a bit of edge by helping Brown up front, leaving Farrow more on the wing, and they're really getting a bit of momentum now, getting a bit of attacking opportunities, and that's good to see for Port Melbourne.
More short stuff. And a low cross in will go again. Short corner's the way to go for Port Melbourne, unfortunately, Peter.
It is a short corner, but also, this is one avenue for goal for them. The set piece, they have got some tall players. We mentioned Brown. We've got Jankelowski as well. He's quite tall. So they really got to make the most of that. And the set piece is one area where Avondale can sometimes be susceptible.
Muyet with the space, and it's a wasted ball for Port Melbourne. It's becoming a theme.
Yeah, you got to have a bit more efficiency there. You got to have a little bit more decisiveness, and just making sure you're clean with your disposal and your shots. And you're not going to get that much opportunities, and you've got to make sure it counts and get that ball into your attacking players. And maybe a second ball might emerge or some deflection, but really disappointing with that. And you really got to be able to be on top of that, because in the second half, this is where players get tired, and this is a chance to get in and create those opportunities.
Tracheski. Wellsmore. Edwards. Kamara for Tracheski. Back to Kamara. Emlyn Wellsmore been impressive tonight. Yusuf Ahmed looking to get to work on Jankelowski here. Wellsmore. His shot not far away from the top right corner earlier in this second half. Yusuf Ahmed. Wellsmore going first time for Agawek. It's going to bounce back toward Courtney Perkins. Kerr on the right side. Left foot ball coming in just overhead of Cuba. Agawek slipped over at the exact wrong moment. And we get a penalty. He got clipped there. I think it was Laban with the contact. No cards being shown here by Momchilo. Vaselinov. Agawek earns the penalty for Avondale. And we'll see who takes it, Peter. But He did go down fairly elaborately, I'll say that.
He did, and Laban will be very disappointed. He's the #1 defensive jeweler this year for Port Melbourne, so really good at defensive jewels. Disappointed with his timing there. It was probably a penalty, and yeah, I think it's going to be Agwek.
Yeah, I didn't say it wasn't a penalty. I just said he went down elaborately. And he'll take his own penalty here.
I just wanted to be precise.
You make up your own minds at home. Chance for a 2-0 lead here. Agawek for his second goal of the night. Up against Luka Romic. Off the post, and that's not gone in. It's still 1-0. It hit the left post and never crossed the line. So play will continue now. A key moment in this game. I think Luka Romic did pick the right way as well, going to his right. Farrow with the shirt tug on Emmeline Wellsmore. Not overly necessary, I think.
Wow, what circumstances in favour of Port there. You're right, Romic chose the wrong way but didn't get to it. Hit the post and then just rolled across. Amazing situation, have to say. And yeah, Port lucky, but you've got to have a bit of luck because you've got to stick into this game. And Avondale now trying to push forward. They're trying to use their three-pronged attack. I would like to see Yusuf being a bit more explosive and take on more players on the left side here. But Avondale, knowing that 0-1's not enough, and they need a better scoreline, are getting a little bit more attack-minded at the moment.
The Sharks are going to be up and about now. The penalty miss for Manny Agawek moments ago. Keeping him in it. The clock never got started on the scoreboard here, Peter, in this second half. Just looked over to see where we are in this second half and can't give an answer on that right now. You can see it at home, obviously. Port Melbourne still searching this equaliser, have been since the 3rd minute. They have definitely held their own with Avondale for a sustained period of time, either side of half-time here. Maker. Farrow. Had to really double back to get that ball back down. That allowed Wellsmore to close in. Cuba. They can be so devastating in the box here. Avondale, Yusuf Ahmed back to Sian Cuba. Will he fire away? No, one way to the other, then back. Over to the right. Very close.
That was very close. Sian Cuba showing what he did when he came to Victoria from Queensland. Altona Magic, dangerous player. Left, right, sitting at the top of the triangle as well, working with Katebi and Trachevsky, getting himself in that position as a false 9 and really just went wide from our commentary box. But you're right, we don't see the time. That's stopped. We haven't started the second half time on our scoreboard, but the game's really picking up. Adam?
Stefan Zini's about to come on for Avondale. It will be the first move of the night for Zoran Markovski. Still just the 1-0 lead for Avondale. A missed penalty for Manny Agawek only moments ago. Double move it will be. Luka Tavia's going to come on as well.
Yeah, when you've got players of that caliber, Tavia and coming on off the off on the benches really shows that Avondale, they've got the squad, and that's thing. Zinni as well, who's had a fantastic NPL career. So these two players can really add another dimension for Avondale.
So Cuba still going. It's being tracked by Jankulovski the entire time. Farrow. Jankulovski. Laban. Still a ban. It was his contact on Manny Agwek that resulted in the penalty. Flag goes up here. Not only a double change for Avondale, but there's one coming soon for Port Melbourne as well. So Sian Cuba is coming off. And so is Kerr with Tavia and Zini coming on.
Tavia came across from Port Melbourne, so he's facing his old side. But when you can replace players of Chan Kuba's value and Kerr's value with Stefan Zini and Tavia, really shows where you're at. Also, Port Melbourne making a change. They'd probably need more of an attacking change. Alessandrados has come on, has shown some things. Obviously working with Brown, but they probably just need a little bit more, someone supportive up front. So it's going to be quite interesting how Port Melbourne get in the second half, need to attack. But they were quite lucky with that penalty. Them very lucky, and could have been 2-0 down. We have got a final result from the other game that a lot of Port supporters and coaches and staff would be looking at, and it's the two teams also in relegation trouble. Melbourne Knights 0, South Melbourne 2.
Can confirm the double change for Port Melbourne. So Latsis and Vikertis are on for McCloskey and Farrow to go with Zini and Tavia coming on for Avondale. Ball never went out of play. Katabian, Tavia. Interesting switching ball. Played on quickly by Courtney Perkins to make it someone else's problem. That someone else was Yusuf Ahmed, who had a man on. Maker. Going out wide, Latsis. Let's look at a couple of bounces on the way into the Avondale box. Jankolovsky. Avondale ball.
Yeah, that's Port Melbourne also made some change. Lartz is a very defensive-minded player, very good at the duels, and really going to add something there. But Avondale, probably not their best performance for the season. Maybe it's the conditions. Maybe they've also got some cup matches and they're rotating. But really, 1-0, it's still, the game's up for balance, and we want to see a little bit more. Avondale, there's not enough spark. I know Trachevsky, he's been working really hard, and he's trying to dictate play. You actually can see him now orchestrating play, of course, with Katebian, and Tevere's trying to get into the game as well. So we will see more from Avondale. It's how Port respond. At 0-1 behind, got to start creating some opportunities in this back end of the second half.
Into the final quarter of this game. It's been 1-0 since the 3rd minute. Manny Agawek missed a penalty kick just before the hour mark. Zini. Avondale do have a cup fixture on Tuesday. They'll be going to Geneseo Stadium, BT Connor Reserve, home of the Preston Lions, to take on Manningham United. A team they obviously saw in the top flight last season. Peter, didn't Manningham United give us some moments of excitement and drama in their 1 year in the top flight? And they'll do battle with Avondale on Tuesday.
Look, Manningham, Moreland, they were competitive last year. Manningham had some really good games, especially I think it's Petty Reserve down at Doncaster, Templestowe, around that area. They were competitive.
They'll take on Avondale on Tuesday in the Cup. No Cup action for Port Melbourne. Avondale ball here. A win tonight for Avondale will put them on the top of the table at least until Heidelberg take the field later in the weekend. Regains by Muyet here. Maker going down. Franceschi, Yusuf Ahmed gets away from Tavia. Vakurtis scored an own goal in this fixture earlier in the season at Avenger Park. Of course, there was an own goal in among the three that Avondale ultimately scored against Oakley last week. No goal turned in by Jordan Hall for Oakley. Latsis, after receiving from Alessandrados, the half-time sub. Port Melbourne throw.
Got to do a bit better there, Latsis. He had Alessandrados and Brown in there. And Laban was also lurking, at least for a second ball. Vakurtis is an interesting one. He was captain of the Melbourne Youth or NPL, Melbourne Victory Youth or NPL, and it's interesting he's come across obviously to Port Melbourne, and we see a lot of these youth players, academy players we call them now, or scholars, coming from the three A-League clubs in Melbourne and coming into NPL. It's quite common, and it's interesting because right now the A-League has got a lot of young players getting opportunities, so there's, for younger players who're still in the NPL, there might be a way back. We know that the A-League window is going to open up for the new season, and A-League clubs have got smaller budgets. So there could be some opportunities if you do impress NPL Victoria, which, as I've always said, Adem, is the best NPL in Australia.
Well, it's not top V bottom, but close enough to this fixture. And Port have stayed with Avondale. Courtney Perkins. Or Wellsmore, in fact, it is, sorry. And drew the save from Romic. Emlyn Wellsmore unloading from long range and earns the corner for Avondale. Fired away a few long ranges tonight. Emlyn Wellsmore bounces in the box. Taken away by Muyet, who's been good tonight for Port Melbourne. That's his first time. Is there a chance here for Port Melbourne? It's Brown and Laban in the area, and again Manos diving, but it doesn't go on target.
Good try there. You've got to try things. You've got to have a bit of free license, and that was an opportunity. I think that might have been Latis who had that shot. Worth trying, and you saw Laban, Alessandrados cause some problems, but it's all about Port Melbourne getting support. They've got to get their players supporting their attacking duo in Alessandrados and Brown, and that was a good transition. Avondale were caught, not napping, but they were caught a little bit on that transition, and that's what Port Melbourne are going to do in the last 10-15 minutes. A high press, put pressure on, and hopefully get either a second ball goal or a transition goal. And we see Maker also pushing up as well. So this is where it's at. There's the last 10-15 minutes.
The South Melbourne winners put Port Melbourne into the bottom two. Avondale will be on top of the ladder in NPL Victoria with victory here tonight. 4 of the 7 fixtures for round 15 in NPL Victoria being played this evening. It's a good one tomorrow too, Peter, that I'll be tuning into. Dandenong Thunder and Hume City. That's always a fun fixture when those two come together.
There's always entertainment, always drama, and always, there's some really exciting players for those two teams who really... I mentioned free license. Those two teams, Hume, Dandenong Thunder, have got players with a bit of X factor, a bit of entertainment, a bit of showmanship, if I can call it that, a bit of swagger, and it's always a fixture that can also be a little bit feisty, Adam.
Laban fouled, another dead ball here for Port Melbourne. One more window available for Maxim Gajdowski. Josh Markovsky looks like he's going to come on. Alec Bechevinovsky could also be coming on for Port Melbourne as well. Every time they get this look here, Port Melbourne, they just blaze it away over the top of the crossbar. Bechevinovsky and Markovsky are about to come on.
Yeah, both attacking players, Bechevinovsky and Markovsky. You've got to play for it. Got to play. You're still in this game after that penalty missed by Avondale, but you can't afford to miss those opportunities. If you're not going to get it on target, at least aim it for one of your attacking players in order for a header or something. You're not going to get that many opportunities for Avondale. They do control the game. They do control possession. And Port Melbourne can't waste those opportunities. I know Maker's coming off, as is Brown. That's two big changes for Port Melbourne, no doubt.
Josh Markovsky scored 2 goals this year for Port Melbourne in NPL Victoria. He comes on up front. Bechevinovsky. His 14th appearance on the team sheet this year. Latsis. Zini gets in the way. Stefan Zini looking to cut his way through. Yusuf Ahmed slots in where Kerr was before he got subbed out. Luka Tavia. Good challenge. Wellsmore left it for Katabian. Zini. Started on the bench this evening, Stefan Zini. Wellsmore. Edwards. Kamara. Bit more purpose right now here with Avondale in this particular possession. Severe waited at the back. It didn't get through to him. Has to retrieve it himself. Wellsmore. Emlyn Wellsmore likes to shoot from range. That was never going to worry Warmish too much.
Yeah, that was a bit of a disappointing outcome. I mean, you've got Tavia, you've got Zini, both players with a punchy mobility, really adding some speed and directness, I would say, to Avondale. But Avondale showing now, this last 5 minutes, a lot of game management. They know they're in control. They're trying to show that game management through possession and not giving that many opportunities to Port Melbourne. But I think we've only got about 12, 13 minutes left of this game.
Yeah, we're inside 12 minutes now in regulation. Latsis. Dib. Muyet. Dib. Lobbing. Manos. It's been relatively busy tonight in goal for Avondale. Tom Manos. The only goal here tonight in the 3rd minute. No one fouled there between Muyet and Yusuf Ahmed. Here's Zini in a paddock of space. Looking to cut onto the right. He does, but that's going to go well wide.
Yeah, that's the danger on the counter attack by Zini. The ability to move quickly, get onto his right and take that shot. And Port Melbourne got to be wary of that because they're pushing up. They want to get the equaliser, but there's the talent, the skill, and I would say the ability of Avondale to pretty much, on a counter-attack, have an efficient goal is there. So it's always a bit of danger here for Port Melbourne, who are really trying to push forward.
This is Latsis. Yusuf Ahmed was closing in on Laban. Markovsky jumping. Bechvanovsky had Courtney Perkins bearing down on him. Man formerly wearing that particular shirt for Port Melbourne. Jankolovsky. Dib. Turns over. Trajewski. Mouillet will regain for Port Melbourne. Jankolevsky. This is Dib. The handball call. Was it? It's a Port Melbourne ball. What was the call?
Yeah, it looked like a handball. Nicholas Dibb really doing a lot of work here for Port Melbourne. Up and down, box to box. Taking also a lot of set pieces. Really showing some leadership. And, yeah, the team's lifting.
Played back in by Laban. He's told to get up by Monchilo Vasilinov. Agawak hasn't had much to do since missing that penalty before the hour mark. That time he did go down very easily. He's not getting up. Now he does. He's okay. There's no one available here for the ball to be played into. It's a goal kick. I think it was Josh Markovsky who had to wait as he advanced forward. Jacob Thomas Chinema, who has scored 6 goals for the under-23s for Avondale this year, coming on for some senior minutes.
Yeah, Thomas is one of the players that was, and I always look out for this. Every year the coaches are asked what are the top young players coming through in NPL. There's a top 40. I think it's in the Herald Sun normally. And he's one of the players that was mentioned there. Not many players from Avondale. Avondale's got a lot of experienced players, of course, but good to see him come on and show what he can do. And it's all about, there's a lot of players from the under-23 coming through into the NPL team. And he's replacing a key player here too, so obviously you keep getting the opportunity.
It's Manny Agawak, who did score his 11th league goal of the season earlier tonight, and that is still the difference between Port Melbourne and Avondale. Manos. Bounce through to Mouillet. Thomas Chinema getting some instant action. Sevilla. Zini. Wellsmore, Zini. Kamara. Katabian. All the way back to Manos. Wellsmore. Trajewski placed it well for Tavia. Courtney Perkins. Still with Jackson, Courtney Perkins. Yusuf Ahmed gets it back. Kamara. Tavia. Edwards. Zini. Jankolevsky did well to regain for Port Melbourne. Trajewski. Wellsmore. Here's Avondale starting to play the clock here. I think the answer is yes, Peter. I think they're just playing some clock right now.
Yeah, they control the tempo, and that's what Avondale's very good at. They're controlling the tempo and able to, get the pass. I mean, how many passes is that? Port Melbourne really either got to show a bit more hustle press, because otherwise, if they don't get a turnover, it's all about Avondale controlling the tempo, passing. You've got a lot of players who can really play the ball, and so it's not a good position to be in, Port Melbourne. They really got to hustle, or maybe even set up maybe a mid-block in order to get that opportunity. But here's a foul. Lartis looked quite lively since he's come on, and he's been creating a few problems. Nicholas Dibb there got to take that back. I think he crossed over the line. But Port Melbourne, the last 10 minutes of the game, they've got to maybe lift their tempo a little bit, but also get some more players into the box. So that's, cause that threat for Port Melbourne.
Four minutes until we reach the 90 here. It's been a little while now since Port Melbourne have been able to generate any sort of shot. They have had a few chances tonight. Tracheski, Katabian, bit of a pressured ball back to Manos. Only as far as Laban. Bechvanovsky. Now wide, Markovsky. It was an empty net there for a moment. Still a chance here for Port Melbourne. Latsis. That was the key moment. It stays in though. They'll get another chance here, Port Melbourne. It goes past Markovsky. Also, Drados wins it back. Latsis, it comes in again. And right there in the right spot was Nick Dibb.
Nicholas Dibb and Lartis, what opportunities. That's probably the best opportunities of the game for Port Melbourne, especially in this second half. You just got to take that, because you're not going to get much against Avondale. They do control the game. And listen, Drados, since he come on quite lively, created that second chance. But just unfortunate, Nicholas Dibb couldn't control it and maybe at least force a save or get it on target. Disappointing for Port Melbourne.
Get it! Left!
Zini. Avondale looking to seal it. Still with Zini. Wants to get back onto that right side. Will so now. Romic in behind it. Port Melbourne are going to run out of chances if they don't take one soon. They go quickly. Markovsky was the target. Thomas Chinema getting it back for Avondale. Zini will run toward the corner. No, he won't. They're still looking for a second, Avondale. Tavia. He will go towards the corner. Look at Tavia. Yusuf Ahmed, he could shoot here. He does shoot. Wrong side of the near post.
Yeah, worth a shot there by Yusuf Ahmed. We haven't seen much of Tavia or Tevere. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but he's got a lot of ability and gets in really good positions. And when Zini's really added a lot of, I suppose, spark on that left-hand side, but that's the adaptability of Avondale. It's a chance for Port Melbourne.
Markovsky didn't get there. Katabian. It was a misfire. Jankolovsky got it back for Port Melbourne. Got to go. Laban. Mouillet. Over toward the corner. Lovely first touch there, but nothing much happening after that for Kurtzis. Laban. 5 minutes added on. Good news for Port Melbourne. Alessandrados. Manos bats it down.
Sandrado showing what he can do, just too far out in the direct at Manos. But you got to try things. Last 5 minutes, and really Port really got to push up. They've got to be man-to-man, more zonal, instead of zonal marking, man-to-man marking to get that turnover. I know that Avondale are very dangerous on the possession and the transition, but Port need to take risks and really push and try to get maybe a mistake or a second ball.
This is Dib. Ricochets out. How much of a chance are you giving Port to snatch a point here?
Look, it's possible. You know, they've shown a lot more attack. I mean, Besvanovsky's got to get a little bit more involved. Nick Dibb's really trying hard. Markowski hasn't had the opportunity yet. With Sandrados, always dangerous, always buzzing. But, you know, you need to get into that box. And, you know, they're really pushing it. Laban is also forcing forward. Maybe they needed also a little bit of a luck, because we know Avondale's abilities. Their transition, their speed, their adaptability. And now, you know, that important interception there, because they were just about to break away.
This is Josh Markowski who went down. Zini fouled by Dib. That's going to cost Port Melbourne a bit of time. Just the 2 bookings tonight. This time he's going to be lost here for Port Melbourne.
Right below us is the coach's box, and there's obviously a little bit of banter going on. But the last 2-3 minutes, it's all on the line. Port really got to push up. They've got to press, a high press. That's the only way they're going to get the ball. Otherwise, you know, the time's going to run out. And I can see Romas now. He's got to get the ball moving. But it's Port have hung in here. We've got to give them credit for that. They haven't been blown away. They have created opportunities. It's just that end products that's missing, Adem.
There were 5 minutes allowed after the 90 ticked by. Yusuf Ahmed. Zini. Trajewski will keep it in and go right for the flag. Jankelevsky, the one that comes over to engage.
I've always said Trajewski's got, you know, not only the skills but also the mindset. Should have been in the A-League, and we know there are reasons why he's not, and he knows those. And I think I discussed it with him, but just that game intelligence, very important. You saw in his body language and, you know, what he did there.
A couple of fouls given away late here by Port Melbourne. Now they're starting to look as though they have to settle for the L here. It would be loss number 11 for the season for Port Melbourne. Avondale might get a late chance here to really seal it. They will be on top of the table up until Heidelberg get their chance to reclaim top spot. Heidelberg away to Melbourne victory in the final game of the weekend. Tavia going out wide. Had to go back and fetch it there. Thomas Chimena. The youngster getting some late minutes tonight. Jacob Thomas Chinema. Slightly dangerous ball. Manos a long way out. That's it. That's enough. Avondale hold on. Manny Agawek all the way back in the 3rd minute. He did miss a penalty kick as well just before the hour mark. Port Melbourne brave, but Avondale too good in the end, Peter.
Yes, Avondale got a lot of options, controlling the tempo, possession, a lot of good players, a lot of solutions, for being able to see the match. But it wasn't a convincing win. Probably they'll say that themselves. Obviously, they missed the penalty as well. Port will be disappointed because they're just missing a little bit of that cutting edge up front. They're really pressed. They had those opportunities, just couldn't get that end product, as I mentioned earlier. But in the scheme of things, although obviously South Melbourne's won tonight and they're back in the relegation zone, they'll get some confidence in this because they competed probably, if not the best, one of the best teams in the NPL, and a lot of players did really well, considering also they're missing Liston Diaz tonight, so that was a major loss for them. Someone who would have been up for this game, having been an ex-Avondale player and also been in top form the last recent weeks. But both teams will take something out of it. Obviously, Avondale on top of the ladder and looking forward to the cup game. Port, yes, may have lost, but a lot of upside here, and I think looking forward to the rest of the season. It's been a compelling one so far, a lot of surprises, and we've seen surges in form, like Green Gully been in form recently, Altona, Porter picked up, so exciting season ahead, and Avondale, a lot to play for.
Peter, I've enjoyed your company tonight. Hope you enjoyed it at home as well. That's us done from JL Murphy Reserve. In the end, it was Port Melbourne 0, Avondale 1.